The great hall of the alien empire glowed with strange light. Tall crystal towers stretched upward, shining with colors that seemed alive. The air hummed with soft energy, and every step on the silver floor echoed like a bell. At the center of this hall stood Ryan, a warrior from Earth, dressed in his plain battle armor. Compared to the grand alien soldiers around him, he looked simple, but he carried himself with steady pride. Ryan had been chosen by the Council of Earth to represent humanity. The galaxy had only recently learned of humans. Many advanced races saw Earth as young, untested, and weak. Yet humans had a will that surprised even the oldest empires. The Queen of the alien empire had invited him here, not only for peace talks, but to judge what kind of spirit humans truly carried. From the golden balcony above, Princess Arya stepped forward. She was tall, graceful, and her eyes glowed with a bright silver light. Her voice filled the hall, sharp and strong. "So this is the human warrior," she said. "I thought he would look greater. Instead, I see only a man in simple iron. Is this the best Earth can send?" The alien court laughed. The sound rolled across the chamber like thunder. Ryan did not flinch. He did not bow lower than needed. He stood as he was, calm and steady. "I am Ryan of Earth," he answered, his voice firm but respectful. "I came not to boast, but to stand for my people. What you see is who we are. We do not hide behind jewels or gold. We fight with what we carry inside." The laughter dimmed. Some aliens frowned. Others whispered. They had expected anger or fear. Instead, the human spoke with a quiet strength. Princess Arya tilted her head, her silver crown catching the light. She smirked. "Brave words. Yet words are easy. I wonder if you can prove them when tested. Our warriors have faced the storms of 100 worlds. What storms have you faced, human?" Ryan's eyes met hers without shaking. "We faced hunger, fire, and endless wars. We faced skies that burned and seas that drowned. Yet still we live. That is our storm." The queen, sitting on her high throne, watched with interest. Her gaze was calm but sharp, like someone weighing every breath. She said nothing, letting the princess and the human speak. Arya stepped down from the balcony and walked slowly around Ryan. She studied his armor, plain steel without shining marks. She studied his eyes, dark and steady. She circled like a predator, her voice sharp. "You do not kneel low enough. You do not dress in honor. You bring no gifts. Do you think you deserve to stand in this hall?" Ryan turned his head to follow her movements. He did not let her words cut deep. Honor does not live in jewels. It lives in how one stands when the world is against him. That is why I stand here. For a moment, silence filled the hall. The alien nobles shifted in their seats. Some looked at Arya, waiting for her to crush him with more taunts. Others felt something stir. They had seen many envoys from far worlds, but few who spoke with such plain fire. The princess narrowed her eyes. She was not used to this. Most who spoke to her either flattered or trembled. This human did neither. He answered simply, as if he did not fear her anger. That unsettled her. To break the silence, she lifted her hand toward the guards. "Then let us see," she said loudly. "Let us see if the human can stand more than just words. Bring him to the trials tomorrow. Let him face our champions. Let him show if Earth storms are more than empty talk." The court cheered, clapping their hands. They wanted to see the human tested. Many hoped he would fail, so they could laugh at Earth once again. Ryan bowed slightly toward the Queen, then toward the Princess. "I will face your trials," he said. "Not to prove myself to you, but to show what humans are. We do not run from challenge." The Queen's lips curved slightly, though she remained silent. Her eyes, sharp as crystal, stayed on him, as if reading the truth of his heart. Later that evening, when the court had left, Ryan stood alone in the guest chamber given to him. Through the tall window, he saw the alien city glowing with rivers of light. The towers stretched high, and ships glided across the skies like silver birds. It was a world far greater than Earth in size and power. Yet Ryan did not feel small. He whispered to himself, "I carry my people here. I cannot fail them." Far above, in her private chamber, Princess Arya watched him from a hidden crystal screen. She told herself she only watched to find his weakness. But something about the way he stood so calm in the hall kept returning to her thoughts. She wanted to laugh at him, to call him foolish. Yet when she remembered his words about storms, she felt a strange curiosity. The next day would bring trials. She was certain he would fail, and she would enjoy it. Still, deep in her mind, a question formed that she did not want to admit. What if he did not? And so, the first day in the alien court ended. A human warrior had met the princess who mocked him. His steady spirit had planted a seed of doubt in her heart, and the queen, silent and watchful, had begun to see something that no one else yet understood. Humanity had entered the Hall of Empires, and the galaxy was about to learn what it meant when a human stood unshaken. The next morning, the alien capital was alive with sound. Bells rang across the crystal towers, and long lines of citizens filled the grand square. Word had spread quickly, the human warrior would face the trials. Many had come to watch, eager to see the stranger from Earth stumble and fail. Ryan walked through the gates of the trial arena. His steps were steady, though his heart beat faster. The arena was massive, built from stone and silver, with walls that reached high into the sky. In the center was a wide field marked with glowing symbols. Around him, the stands overflowed with alien spectators, their voices rising like waves. At the far side of the field, Princess Arya appeared in shining armor, though she herself was not competing. She stood tall beside her guards, her silver crown gleaming. Her eyes found Ryan, and a small smirk touched her lips. She whispered to her maid, "This will be over quickly. He will learn that human pride breaks easily." The queen sat above all, on a high throne overlooking the field. Her expression was unreadable, calm, and sharp as glass. She raised her hand, and the arena grew silent. Her voice echoed through the air. "By request of the princess, the human warrior shall face the trials of skill and strength. He will meet 3 champions, each chosen from our finest. Let his courage be tested before the eyes of the Empire." The first gate opened, and out stepped a tall alien fighter named Vark. His skin was dark bronze, and his muscles rippled like stone. He carried a heavy spear that shimmered with energy. The crowd cheered his name. Vark bowed to the queen, then pointed the spear at Ryan. Ryan wore no glowing armor. He carried only a steel sword from Earth, plain and sharp. He had no shield, no energy fields, nothing to match the alien's power. Still, he lifted his sword and nodded once. The trial began. Vark charged forward, his spear striking with the speed of lightning. Ryan dodged to the side, his boots sliding on the smooth floor. The spear cracked the stone where he had stood a second earlier. Gasps echoed from the crowd. The alien champion pressed again, stabbing and sweeping with powerful strikes. Ryan moved quickly, not trying to block each blow but to avoid them. His smaller frame allowed him to slip through the gaps. Arya folded her arms, her smirk deepening. He runs. He cannot stand against strength. But the queen's eyes narrowed, watching closely. Ryan waited, each dodge bringing him closer to the champion. Then, when the spear stabbed down again, Ryan twisted his body, letting the shaft slide past his side. With one sharp strike, he hit the weapon with his sword, not breaking it but pushing it out of line. In the same motion, he kicked against Vark's knee. The giant stumbled, caught off balance. The crowd gasped louder. Ryan did not finish the strike. He stepped back, raising his sword only in defense. Vark growled, but then bowed his head. He had been beaten not by strength, but by speed and skill. The queen raised her hand, and the crowd roared in shock. Arya's smirk faded. She turned her head away, but inside her chest something stirred. She had expected the human to fall at the first blow, yet he had stood and even gained respect. The second gate opened. From it stepped a warrior covered in scaled armor, holding twin blades that gleamed with heat. Her name was Selra, known for speed and precision. She bowed to the queen, then faced Ryan with eyes sharp as knives. The trial began again. Selra rushed forward, her twin blades spinning like fire. Ryan had no choice but to block this time. Sparks flew as steel met alien metal. The strikes came faster than the human could count, and soon his arms ached from holding her back. She moved like wind, her armor glinting as she spun. The crowd cheered her name, certain she would overwhelm him. But Ryan remembered his training. Humans had always fought enemies stronger and faster. They had survived by watching closely, waiting for small mistakes. Step by step, he adjusted to her rhythm. Each time she struck, he moved just enough to weaken the force. Each time she spun, he kept his eyes locked on her center, not the flashing blades. Finally, the moment came. As Selra swung both swords in a wide arc, Ryan ducked low and pushed his shoulder into her chest. She staggered back. With one swift move, he tapped his sword against her armor, not cutting but showing that he could have struck true. The crowd went silent, stunned. Selra froze, then bowed in respect. Ryan lowered his sword again, breathing heavy but still standing tall. From the balcony, Arya clenched her fist. Her taunts burned in her throat, but she could not deny what she had seen. Twice now the human had faced champions and lived. Twice he had shown not brute power, but cleverness and heart. The queen watched with growing interest. Her lips curved in the faintest of smiles. Then the third gate opened. Out walked the final champion, a massive beast-like warrior named Corven. His body was covered in thick armor plates, and he carried a hammer so large it could crush stone with one swing. The ground shook as he stepped into the arena. The crowd erupted, certain the human could not stand against such power. Ryan's body was tired, his arms sore from blocking Selra's storm of blades. Yet his eyes stayed steady. He raised his sword once more. The queen lifted her hand. Begin. Corven roared and charged. His hammer swung with the force of a falling mountain. Ryan rolled aside just in time, the impact cracking the ground where he had been. Dust rose high into the air. The hammer lifted again, striking with unstoppable force. Ryan could not hope to block it. He had to stay fast, moving from side to side, never letting the hammer hit him. The crowd shouted with every strike. To them, it looked like a dance of life and death. The alien swung with power, the human dodged with speed. Yet Ryan knew he could not dodge forever. He searched for weakness, for some gap in the armor. At last he saw it. Each time Corven lifted the hammer, his balance shifted to one leg. For a moment, his side opened. Ryan waited for the next strike, then rushed forward instead of back. He slid under the hammer's arc and slammed his sword against Corven's side joint. The armor dented, and Corven roared in pain. The crowd gasped. Corven tried to lift his hammer again, but Ryan was already moving. He struck again at the weak joint, forcing the giant to fall to one knee. With his final strength, Ryan pressed his blade against the beast's neck, showing victory. The arena fell silent. Then the queen rose to her feet, her voice ringing across the stands. The human has passed the trials. He has faced our champions and stood unbroken. Let the Empire see his strength. The crowd erupted in cheers, though many were still shocked. Arya's face burned with heat. She wanted to speak, to dismiss it as luck. Yet her heart pounded in a way she did not understand. She had called him weak, but before her eyes, he had proven himself 3 times over. Ryan stood in the center of the arena, his sword still in hand. He bowed to the queen, then to the crowd. His body ached, his chest heaved with breath, but his spirit was firm. He had shown not only courage, but the will of humanity. And though Arya turned away, her mind could not forget the sight of him standing tall after every trial. Something had begun to change, though she refused to admit it. The arena was empty now. The dust from the trials had settled, and the cheers of the crowd had faded into the night. Ryan sat alone in his chamber, his armor placed beside him, his sword resting across his knees. His body ached from the battles, but his mind was calm. He had faced the best of the alien empire and stood unbroken. Yet he knew this was only the beginning. Through the tall crystal window, he saw the alien city glowing like a sea of stars. Silver towers rose into the sky, and flying ships passed silently between them. It was beautiful, but Ryan could not forget the weight of his mission. He was not here only for himself. He carried the honor of Earth on his shoulders. Every step he took, every word he spoke, shaped how the galaxy would see humanity. While Ryan rested, Princess Arya walked through the palace gardens. The air smelled of strange flowers that shimmered in the dark, their petals glowing faint blue. Water flowed through crystal channels, casting ripples of light on the polished stones. Arya's heart was unsettled. She had mocked the human when he first arrived, expecting him to be weak and foolish. Yet he had faced 3 champions and had not broken. Her thoughts kept returning to the moment when he stood calm in the hall, answering her taunts with steady words. And then again, when he had faced the beast Corven, sliding under the hammer with a move so bold that even she had gasped. She told herself it was only luck, but a voice inside whispered otherwise. Arya stopped near the garden's central fountain, where the water rose high like a silver flame. She stared at her reflection in the pool, frowning. Why did she keep thinking of him? He was just a human, from a world barely known among the stars. Yet something about his spirit refused to leave her thoughts. She turned when she heard footsteps. To her surprise, it was Ryan, walking slowly through the garden. His armor was gone, replaced by plain clothes of Earth design, simple and light. He carried no weapon, only a calm presence. "Princess," Ryan said, bowing slightly in respect. Arya lifted her chin. "You should be resting after the trials. Or do humans not need sleep?" Ryan smiled faintly. "We do. But sometimes the mind is restless. I thought the garden might bring peace. Arya crossed her arms, trying to sound sharp. Do not think your victory means you are great. You surprised them with tricks, nothing more. Ryan looked at her, his eyes steady. If you call them tricks, then perhaps survival itself is a trick. Humanity has lived because we learn to adapt. We use what we have, even when it is less than what others hold. That is our way. Her words caught in her throat. She had expected him to defend himself with pride, maybe even to argue. Instead, he spoke with quiet honesty. It disarmed her in a way no sword could. Tell me, human, she said, her voice softer now, why did you not answer my insults with anger? Others have. They fought to prove themselves, yet you stood calm. Why? Ryan looked toward the glowing flowers. Because words are not weapons unless I let them cut me. If I waste my strength on anger, I have nothing left for the battles that matter. My people taught me that spirit is stronger than pride. Arya was silent for a long moment. The sound of the fountain filled the space between them. She studied his face, expecting to find arrogance, but instead she saw only calm truth. You speak as if humans carry wisdom, she said finally. Yet your world is still young. You have not seen as many stars as we have. Ryan turned back to her. Perhaps we are young, princess. But sometimes the young see what the old forget. We know struggle every day. It shapes us. We are small in this galaxy, but we will not bow. For the first time, Arya found herself without a sharp reply. His words held weight, not because they were loud, but because they were steady. The queen, watching from her private chamber high above, smiled faintly as she saw them together in the garden. She had ordered no guards to follow Arya this night. She wanted her daughter to face the human alone, to see him not as a rival, but as a person. Arya turned her gaze back to the fountain, trying to steady her thoughts. She told herself she still despised his plainness, his lack of jewels, his stubborn pride. Yet her heart beat faster when she remembered him shielding her during the earlier attack, standing in front of danger without fear. Ryan broke the silence again. Your people are strong. Your warriors fight with great skill. But strength alone does not make peace. It takes trust. Arya's eyes flicked to him. And do you think I should trust you, human? Ryan held her gaze. I do not ask you to trust me because of words. I will earn it by action. That is the only way it matters. His words echoed in her mind long after they left the garden. When Arya returned to her chamber, she sat by the tall window, staring out at the stars. She felt restless, her heart pulled in two directions. She wanted to dismiss him, to call him foolish. Yet she could not forget the way he had stood before her, calm and unshaken. For the first time in her life, the princess who mocked others felt uncertain. She had faced countless admirers, warriors, and noble sons from other worlds. None had moved her heart, for all of them bent quickly to her pride. But this human did not. He stood steady, unbroken, even when she tried to push him down. And deep inside, though she did not admit it even to herself, a strange respect had begun to grow. Ryan, alone in his chamber, sharpened his sword by candlelight. His hands moved slowly, his eyes focused. Yet in his mind, he replayed the sound of her voice, softer than before. He told himself it meant nothing, that his mission was only for Earth. Still, he could not deny that the proud princess was no longer just a rival. She was a mystery he wanted to understand. The bond between them was not yet clear, not yet spoken, but it had begun to form. Neither of them wanted to admit it, but both of them felt it. And the queen, wise and silent, already saw where it would lead. The palace of the alien empire stood strong under the starlit sky. Its crystal towers glowed with soft silver light, and guards marched across the walls in steady lines. It was a place that seemed untouchable, a fortress of power. Yet that night, shadows moved beyond the horizon, and danger approached. Ryan had not slept. He sat awake in his chamber, sharpening his sword by the light of a single crystal lamp. Something inside him felt unsettled. His warrior's instinct told him that silence could be more dangerous than noise. He set his sword aside and rose to his feet. Far above, Princess Arya stood on her balcony, looking at the stars. She had spent many nights staring at the endless sky, but tonight it felt heavy, almost watching her. Her thoughts were restless. They turned again and again to the human warrior. She shook her head, annoyed with herself. Why should she think of him when she had spent her whole life mocking outsiders? Then the peace shattered. A low rumble echoed through the city. At first it sounded like thunder, but the skies were clear. The towers trembled as if the ground itself groaned. Alarms rang out across the palace walls, sharp and urgent. The silver lights dimmed, then flashed red. Soldiers shouted orders, rushing through the halls. Ryan snatched up his sword and ran to the balcony. His eyes widened. From beyond the horizon, dark ships tore through the sky, their hulls shaped like claws. Fire poured from their engines as they descended toward the palace. The rival species had come. They were enemies of the Empire, known for sudden raids and merciless attacks. The palace guards rushed to the queen's chamber, forming a shield around her throne. The queen rose slowly, her calm eyes sharp. "So it begins," she whispered, though her voice held no fear. Arya hurried through the halls, her crown slipping as she ran. Her heart pounded as she turned a corner and saw soldiers clashing with invaders in the grand corridor. Blades sparked, shields broke, and cries filled the air. For the first time, she felt a taste of real fear. Then Ryan appeared. He fought his way through the chaos, his sword flashing against the enemy's weapons. His armor was plain, yet he moved with fierce skill. When an invader lunged at Arya, Ryan stepped between them. His blade struck true, and the attacker fell. "Stay behind me," Ryan said firmly, his voice steady even as battle roared around them. Arya's breath caught. She had faced many dangers before, but never had someone placed themselves in front of her like a shield without hesitation. She wanted to argue, to refuse, but her voice failed. She could only nod and follow his lead. Together they moved through the burning halls. The enemy pushed hard, their weapons glowing with dark fire. Ryan fought with everything he had, his arms heavy yet unbroken. Arya, though not as skilled, took up a fallen guard's spear and struck when enemies came too close. For the first time, they fought side by side, not as rivals but as allies. The invaders reached the throne room. With a roar, they burst through the golden doors. The queen stood waiting, calm as stone, but her guards were few, and the enemy outnumbered them. Just as one warrior raised his weapon toward the queen, Ryan charged across the hall. His sword met the enemy's strike, sparks flying in the air. Arya cried out, rushing to her mother's side. She stood in front of the throne, her spear raised though her arms shook. Ryan joined her, his chest rising and falling with hard breaths. The invaders circled, snarling in their strange language. "Leave now," Ryan said to them, his voice strong. "You will not pass." The enemies laughed, their leader stepping forward with a massive blade. He was twice Ryan's size, his armor thick and dark. He sneered, pointing his weapon at the human. Ryan gripped his sword tighter. He knew he was outmatched in strength, but retreat was not an option. He thought of Earth, of the storms and struggles his people had endured. He thought of Arya standing behind him, her life in danger. His spirit burned brighter than fear. The leader swung his heavy blade, and Ryan met it with his own. The clash shook the hall. Ryan staggered back but did not fall. He countered with a swift strike to the side, forcing the enemy to block. Blow after blow, they fought, the human's speed against the alien's power. At last, Ryan saw his chance. As the leader lifted his blade high, Ryan stepped in close and struck at the joint of his armor, just as he had done in the trials. The blade bit deep, and the leader roared in pain. With one final strike, Ryan pushed him to the ground. The hall went silent. The invaders froze, their leader defeated. Some snarled, others hesitated, but then a horn echoed across the city. It was the sound of retreat. The enemy ships lifted from the towers, fire trailing behind them as they fled back into the stars. The palace guards cheered, raising their weapons high. The queen lowered her head in silent approval. Arya dropped her spear, her chest heaving as she looked at Ryan. He stood with blood on his arm, his sword heavy in his hand, yet his eyes were steady. "You stood before me," she whispered, almost to herself. "You fought for me." Ryan wiped his blade and answered simply, "It was the right thing to do." The queen stepped forward, her voice carrying across the hall. "The human has defended not only my daughter but this palace itself. Let all who stand here remember this night. Humanity has proven more than courage. They have proven honor." The nobles bowed, though many still wore expressions of shock. Never before had an outsider fought with such fire within the palace walls. Arya's heart beat fast. She wanted to speak, to thank him, but the words caught in her throat. For the first time, she did not see him as plain or weak. She saw him as unshaken, a shield that stood between her and death. As Ryan left the hall, his steps slow from exhaustion, she found her eyes following him. She could not explain it, but something inside her had shifted. That night, when the fires were finally put out and the palace returned to silence, the queen looked out at the stars. A small smile touched her lips. She could see what her daughter could not yet admit. Bonds were being forged, stronger than iron, stronger than pride. And in the heart of danger, humanity had shown once again why they could never be ignored. The palace still carried the marks of the attack. Broken stones lay in the halls, scorch marks lined the silver walls, and the smell of smoke lingered in the air. Servants hurried to clean the ruins while guards doubled their watch on the gates. Yet within the great throne hall, silence rested heavy, for the queen had called her court together. Ryan stood in the center, his sword at his side, his arm wrapped in cloth from a wound he had taken during the battle. He felt the stares of every noble upon him. Some were sharp with distrust, others curious, and a few even respectful. At the top of the steps, the queen rose from her throne. She wore no crown that day, only a long robe of deep blue that shimmered in the light. Her eyes, silver like her daughter's, swept over the hall. When she spoke, her voice carried across the chamber like the sound of a clear bell. "Last night, our enemies came to break our walls. They believed our strength had faded. They believed they could strike at the heart of this empire. But they did not stand before my guards, nor even before my daughter. They stood before a human. The nobles shifted uneasily. Some muttered, some looked down. The queen raised her hand, silencing them. This man, Ryan of Earth, took his place not as one of us, but as himself. Yet in his courage, he showed honor greater than many born within these walls. He fought not for reward, but because it was right. He shielded my daughter with his own life. For that, he has my respect, and he shall have yours. The hall echoed with the weight of her words. Slowly, though not all, some nobles bowed their heads. Arya stood beside her mother, her arms crossed, her face calm, though inside her chest her heart raced. She had tried since last night to steady herself, to erase the image of Ryan standing before her with blood on his arm, facing the enemy's blade without fear. But every time she closed her eyes, that image returned. When the court was dismissed, Arya followed her mother into the quiet chamber behind the throne. The queen moved with calm grace, yet her daughter's steps were restless. "Mother," Arya began, her voice sharp though unsteady, "you speak as if this human is greater than all others. He is still from a small world. Should we give so much honor to him?" The queen turned, her gaze steady. "You doubt because of pride, Arya. But pride cannot blind truth. Tell me, did you not see him stand before you when the enemy's blade came down? Did you not see him fight without fear?" Arya's lips parted, but no words came. She remembered too clearly. She remembered his voice telling her to stay behind him. She remembered how he moved with fierce will even when wounded. Her heart betrayed her pride, for it beat faster as she remembered. The queen's expression softened. "You have mocked him since he arrived. Yet he has never answered with anger. That alone should tell you something. He carries a strength not born from power, but from spirit. And spirit is what this empire needs most." Arya turned away, hiding her face. She did not want her mother to see the heat rising in her cheeks. Later that day, Ryan walked through the palace gardens, his arms still bound in cloth. The glowing flowers sway gently in the breeze, their light soft against the crystal paths. He felt peace here, even in a place so far from earth. Arya appeared from the shadows of the trees, her steps careful, almost hesitant. She wore a simple dress rather than her armor, and her crown was gone. Ryan bowed when he saw her. "Princess," he said respectfully. She studied him for a moment, then asked, "Why did you protect me during the attack? You could have saved yourself. You could have run. Yet you placed yourself before me, though you owe me nothing." Ryan met her gaze, his eyes calm. "Because it was the right thing to do. A warrior does not measure who is worth saving. He saves who stands before him. You were in danger, so I stood there." Arya's heart twisted at his words. She had taunted him since the day he entered the hall, calling him weak, laughing at his plain armor. Yet he had shielded her without hesitation, as if her cruelty had never touched him. "You are a fool," she whispered, though her voice trembled. "A fool who does not know when to run." Ryan smiled faintly. "Perhaps. But humans have always been fools in that way. We do not run when it matters. That is why we survive." Arya looked away, but her chest tightened. She hated that his words stirred something inside her, something she could not control. As the sun set, painting the sky with red and gold, Ryan returned to his chamber. He sat by the window, sharpening his sword, his mind heavy with thoughts. He knew the queen's gaze lingered on him with growing approval. He knew the nobles still doubted. And he knew the princess watched him with eyes that burned between pride and something softer. Far above, in her private chamber, the queen stood at her window, watching the stars. Her voice was quiet as she spoke to herself. The bond has begun. She may not see it yet, but I do. The human has planted a seed in her heart. In the days that followed, Ryan continued to train with the guards, showing them human techniques that valued speed and strategy over brute force. Many laughed at first, but when his methods saved them from mistakes, they grew silent with respect. Arya often watched from a distance, telling herself she was only observing. Yet every time Ryan's blade moved with grace, or his voice carried calm instructions, she felt her chest tighten again. She wanted to mock him, to keep the wall of pride between them. But the wall was cracking. One evening, as Ryan finished his training, Arya stepped forward. Her voice was steady, though her heart beat fast. "Teach me," she said. Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Teach you?" She nodded. "Teach me the way you fight. Not with heavy strength, but with speed. I want to know." Ryan studied her for a long moment, then bowed slightly. "If you wish, princess, I will teach you. But know this: human ways are not about pride. They are about survival." Her lips curved, though she quickly hid it. "Then show me, human. Show me how you survive." And so, in the garden under the stars, the human warrior and the alien princess began to train together. Step by step, word by word, a bond grew between them. She still mocked him at times, and he still answered with calm strength. But behind every strike and every lesson, respect began to form. And the queen, ever watchful, knew what her daughter refused to admit. The heart of the princess was changing. The great hall of the alien empire was filled with light. Crystals hung from the high ceilings, casting rainbows across the polished floor. Nobles from across the galaxy had gathered, their robes shining in every color imaginable. The air buzzed with curiosity and expectation. Whispers moved quickly through the crowd. Everyone had heard of the human warrior, Ryan, who had faced the trials and saved the palace. But no one had ever seen such a moment before. The queen, dressed in flowing robes of deep silver, rose from her throne. Her eyes scanned the hall, and silence fell like a blanket. Even the clamor of the crowd could not escape her presence. She raised her hand, and all attention focused on her. "My people," she began, her voice steady and clear, "you have seen courage. You have seen strength. You have seen honor. But never before has our empire witnessed such spirit from an outsider." Ryan stood at the center of the hall, his armor polished from the day's duties, though his sword rested calmly at his side. He did not bow low, nor did he seek attention. Yet his posture was proud, calm, and strong. Every eye in the hall was on him. The queen's gaze softened as she looked at him. "Ryan of Earth, you have faced our champions and our enemies. You have protected this palace and its people. You have proven that humans carry a strength that even we could not imagine. For this, you have my respect." Murmurs rippled through the hall. Some aliens whispered in awe. Others frowned, unsure how to accept that an outsider had earned such honor. Princess Arya stood near the throne, her hands clasped in front of her. She had not spoken a word since they entered. Her heart beat fast, and her mind raced with questions she could not answer. The queen continued, her voice rising. "And yet, there is more. Courage and honor must be paired with unity. Our worlds cannot survive alone, and our futures must be bound together by trust and alliance. The nobles leaned forward. Some were confused. Others looked at Ryan with curiosity. Turning her gaze to Princess Arya, the queen spoke again, this time more softly. Arya, my daughter, you have seen the human warrior with your own eyes. You have watched his courage, his calm, and his strength. You have seen what it means to face fear without yielding. And now, it is time for you to accept what your eyes already know. Arya's face burned. She had spent weeks denying the respect that had grown in her heart. She had mocked Ryan since the day he arrived, yet now she felt a pull she could not resist. She swallowed hard and tried to meet her mother's calm gaze. The queen raised her hand, and the hall grew silent once more. Ryan of Earth, I name you not only as my people's champion but also as the chosen partner of my daughter. You are now, by law and by honor, to be her husband. Gasps erupted through the crowd. Aliens whispered in shock. Some fell silent, stunned. Ryan himself froze for a moment. He had never expected this announcement. Though he respected the princess and felt a bond forming, he had never imagined it would be declared openly, in front of the Empire. Arya's hands trembled. Her eyes widened, and her chest heaved with a mix of shock, disbelief, and something new she could not yet name. The woman who had once taunted him, now stood silently, realizing the full weight of the queen's words. Ryan took a deep breath. His mind raced, but he kept his calm. He bowed his head slightly toward the queen. I will honor this, he said, his voice steady. Not for myself, but because it is right. I will stand with Princess Arya, and together we will serve our worlds. The queen nodded, satisfied. See how humans speak with honesty and humility. This is why they are never to be underestimated. The hall erupted into cheers. Some were hesitant, bowing their heads to acknowledge the union. Others cheered loudly, excited at the promise of unity between worlds. Arya slowly lowered her gaze. Her hands were still trembling, but she could not ignore the courage and calm that radiated from Ryan. He did not boast, he did not demand, he simply stood steady, showing the heart of a true warrior. As the cheers continued, Ryan stepped closer to Arya. He did not reach for her hand immediately, respecting the distance between them. Instead, he spoke softly, just enough for her to hear. Princess, I will not force your heart. I will only earn it, as I earn respect from all. Arya's eyes flickered up to meet his. She saw the truth in his words. There was no arrogance, no claim of victory, only honesty and patience. Her pride melted slowly as she realized the man she had once mocked could now stand beside her as an equal, and perhaps something more. The queen gestured to the crowd. Let this day be remembered. Let it be known that courage, honor, and wisdom are not bound by birthplace. Let the bond between Ryan of Earth and Princess Arya mark the beginning of a new era for our worlds. The nobles nodded, some still whispering, some openly cheering. Ryan and Arya remained at the center, both quiet as the weight of the announcement sank in. For Arya, every word the queen had spoken felt like a challenge to her pride. Yet as she looked at Ryan, she could not deny the calm strength that had always drawn her attention. Later, as the crowd dispersed, Ryan accompanied Arya back to her chamber. The halls were quiet now, the echoes of the announcement still lingering. Arya paused before the doorway, her hands clenched. You will not leave me, she asked softly. Her voice carried a mixture of fear and curiosity. Ryan shook his head. I will not. I am here because it is right. I will stay, and I will stand beside you, no matter what comes. Arya felt a warmth rise inside her chest. For so long, she had thought of him as nothing more than a strange human, weak and unworthy. Now she saw him clearly, steady, brave, honest. Someone who could not only protect her but could also teach her the meaning of courage in ways she had never known. She stepped closer, still cautious, and whispered, "Then I will try to understand you, Ryan. I will try to see as you see." He bowed slightly, his eyes calm. "That is all I ask, Princess. Time and honesty will do the rest." The Queen, watching from afar, smiled. She had given her daughter a gift not of jewels or gold, but of something far greater. Respect and trust had begun to grow, and from it, a bond between worlds would form. That day, in the Great Hall of the Alien Empire, humanity had not only proven its strength and honor, but it had also won a place in the heart of a princess. And for the first time, the galaxy began to see that humans were more than outsiders, they were partners, warriors, and equals in the vastness of the stars. The morning sun rose over the alien capital, painting the crystal towers with soft gold and silver light. The city shimmered like a river of stars. The previous night's announcement still echoed in the minds of everyone in the palace. Ryan and Princess Arya had been named partners, bound by honor, and by the will of the Queen. Yet the real test had only just begun, the test of understanding, trust, and the slow building of a bond between two very different beings. Ryan stood in the training courtyard, practicing his sword techniques. Each movement was precise, a combination of human agility and strategy. His mind was clear, yet part of it remained aware of Arya watching from the balcony above. She had come quietly, not interrupting, but curious to see him. The princess had spent days observing him, learning not only his techniques but the calm patience he carried in every motion. Arya stepped into the courtyard, carrying a practice spear. Her armor had been removed in favor of simple garments that allowed ease of movement. Her silver eyes focused on Ryan, not with the mockery she had once carried, but with quiet determination. "You teach well," she said softly. "I understand your methods more each day." Ryan lowered his sword and smiled faintly. "That is all I ask, Princess. Understanding comes with patience. Skill comes with practice." For a moment, they stood silently, the only sound the wind rustling the glowing plants around the courtyard. It was a moment of peace, a calm after the storm of the previous days. Arya's heart beat faster than she expected. She had never spent time with anyone like this, a human who stood not only strong but steady, never demanding, never claiming superiority. "Show me again," she said, raising her spear. "Show me the move you used against the second champion in the trials." Ryan nodded, stepping forward. He demonstrated the move slowly, explaining each step, each angle, and each timing. Arya followed carefully, mimicking his movements. At first, she stumbled, frustrated by her own missteps. But Ryan's voice remained calm, guiding, never harsh. "You are too tense," he said gently. "Relax your shoulders. Let your body move naturally. Your strength is in your speed, not in forcing it." Arya paused and breathed deeply, adjusting her stance. Slowly, her movements became smoother, closer to Ryan's demonstration. He nodded, impressed. "Better," he said. "See how humans adjust? We do not rely only on strength. We observe, we wait, we act at the right moment." Her lips curved slightly, though she tried to hide it. "I see now," she whispered. "I see why you are different. I see why the Queen respects you." Ryan looked at her, his calm gaze meeting hers. "Respect is earned, Princess," not demanded. You already have courage, but courage alone is not enough. Understanding and patience make a warrior complete. They practiced together for hours. The sun moved high, casting golden reflections across the courtyard. Arya began to smile more openly. The wall of pride she had carried began to fade. She laughed softly when she stumbled and Ryan corrected her gently. Each moment with him was a lesson, not only in combat but in respect, trust, and patience. By the evening, they were sitting beside the crystal fountain in the palace gardens. Water flowed softly, the glow from the flowers casting gentle light over their faces. The city outside was quiet now, citizens returning to their homes after a day of awe and conversation about the human warrior. You have taught me more than I expected, Arya admitted. Not only about fighting, but about standing strong. About facing challenges without fear. Ryan looked at her and nodded. That is what humans do. We face the storms we cannot control. We stand even when all seems lost. That is how we survive. That is how we honor our world and those we care for. Her heart felt warmth she could not ignore. She had mocked him once, thinking him weak, but now she realized the truth. Strength was not in armor, nor in titles, nor in wealth. It was in the heart, in the courage to stand, and the wisdom to act without arrogance. Ryan, she said softly, her voice almost trembling, I want to understand more. I want to see the world as you do. I want to learn from you, not only in battle but in life. Ryan's eyes softened. He reached out gently, taking her hand, not as a conqueror, but as a partner. Then we will learn together, princess. Step by step, day by day. You do not need to rush. Respect and trust grow slowly, but they are stronger than any sword. Arya felt her chest swell with emotion. She had expected to be annoyed, to resist, but instead, she felt a strange peace. The human she had once taunted had become her guide, her equal, and something more she could not yet name. Days passed, and their bond continued to grow. They trained together, spoke together, and faced small challenges within the palace. Each time, Arya saw the depth of Ryan's patience, his cleverness, and his unwavering spirit. She found herself laughing more, speaking more openly, and thinking of him constantly. One evening, the queen invited them both to a private chamber. She smiled, her sharp eyes warm. You have done well, she said. Not only has Ryan shown his worth, but you, Arya, have begun to see beyond pride. This is how unity begins. Respect, trust, and understanding. That is stronger than any sword or empire. Arya bowed slightly. I understand now, mother. I see what I could not before. Ryan nodded silently, watching her with quiet approval. He knew this was only the beginning. The bond between them would continue to grow, not forced by words or titles, but by actions, respect, and shared experience. As they left the queen's chamber, Arya looked at Ryan, her silver eyes meeting his steady gaze. Thank you, she said simply. For everything. For standing with me, for teaching me, for showing me how to see clearly. Ryan smiled softly. It is my honor, princess. Together, we will face what comes next, not only for us but for both our worlds. The sun set over the palace, casting long shadows across the city. The crystal towers glowed in the twilight, reflecting the light of distant stars. For the first time in the alien empire's history, a human warrior had not only proven his courage and honor, but had also become a true partner to a princess. And for Arya, What began as mockery and doubt had blossomed into respect, trust, and the beginnings of love. The bond between them promised not only unity between two people, but unity between worlds. Humanity had once again shown why it could never be ignored. The galaxy, vast and endless, had witnessed the start of a story that would be remembered for generations. One where courage, patience, and heart conquered doubt and fear. One where the human spirit stood strong among the stars. And so, the human warrior and the alien princess began their journey together. Side by side, they faced the unknown, ready to write a future where strength was measured not only in power, but in honor, respect, and the bond of trust that neither distance nor difference could break.